So hills, some people love them, some people hate them. And here are a few things that you can do to improve your ability to run up hills. And maybe with time, if you practice often enough, you'll become one of the people that love hills if you're not one of those people already. So what can you do? Well, pace is the most important thing. Pace is probably the most important thing in all endurance sports. And so if you see a hill, run an appropriate pace. It doesn't really help to attack it if it's going to take you 30 minutes to get up this hill. If it's like around here in the Pyrenees, there are some hills that take you an hour or more to get up. So you have to adopt an appropriate pace and take your time and get into a nice rhythm. If it's a short hill, 30 seconds, 2 minutes, you can run a bit harder and work a bit harder and get yourself up to the top of it. But bear in mind that if you're trying to develop your running endurance, or if you're on an endurance run, you don't want to be working too hard. You want to try and stay in your endurance training zones. And if you're interested in longer runs and developing your ability to run further, you might like to look at our video on endurance running. So what other things can you do to make things a bit easier without actually getting any fitter? Well, take short strides so you're not having to apply as much force with each step, and get into a nice rhythm. So you're just like pattering up the hill, and if you apply it, you can go a bit slower then, and therefore you can stay at a level of intensity that you can sustain. If you try and go too fast, then you're just going to run out of energy before you get to the top, and then you're going to really struggle, and you get a mindset that you can't do hills. Well, everybody can run up hills. Some people find it harder and some people find it easier, and some people like it and some people don't. But you can learn to get better at running up hills. So try and get that rhythm. Watch some videos on YouTube and or some races where people are running up hills. There must be some mountain races or trail races. Like watch Kilian Jornet. He's an amazing climber, and he's also an amazing descender. And see what techniques these elite athletes do. And although you won't be going as fast as they are, you can use the same skills and techniques that they use and just adapt them for yourself. So other things you can do is to develop your fitness. So you could do things like hill repeats. So just to get better at running up hills. If you do hill repeats of 2 to 5 minutes, or even 30 seconds to 5 minutes, you can practice that technique that I talked, get short strides, get into a good rhythm, but also you're getting fitter and you're building up your ability to run up hills. The muscles that you use when you're running uphill will get stronger, the endurance in those muscles will get better, and you'll gradually over time get fitter at running up hills. Fitness is very specific, remember. You've got your cardiovascular fitness, which is important to transport oxygen, and that's transported through your blood, and so your heart pumps more effectively, pumps the blood more effectively, and the oxygen transports to your muscles more effectively. But the muscle at the muscular level, that's very specific. Some muscles are working more when you're running uphill, like your glutes, or perhaps your quads are working really hard when you're going downhill. So if you do hill repeats, then those muscles will get better and more efficient, and therefore you'll be getting better at running up hills. Don't give up. It's to some extent, running up hills is like mind over matter. When you started running, you probably struggled to run for more than 2 or 3 minutes because you were getting out of breath, and then you had to stop and walk, and it's just like that with hills. It's to some extent, it's just getting used to the fact that the feeling of what it's like to run up hills. And if it's a really steep hill that you're struggling, it's sort of close to your limit, then sometimes just knowing that you can keep going, or forcing yourself to keep going, gets you over that mental barrier. And then once you know that you can keep going up the hill, just like you can now maybe run for 30 or 40 minutes or more, even 3 or 4 hours, then you'll learn to know that you can run up the hill if you want to. It may not be appropriate if you're doing an endurance run. It may be better to walk so that you stay within your correct training zones. But once you get the mindset that you're good at hills, or at least you can run up hills, then that gets you over the barrier, and that's a great stepping stone to move you forwards. Moving on from that, don't be afraid to walk. If you're going up a long hill, like I said, here you can be going up a hill for a couple of hours, and if you need a break, or if you come to a steep section, walk for a bit, run for a bit, walk for a bit. If you watch watch hill runners in Britain. I used to do a lot of hill running, and and people used to swap between running and walking, and that was a really effective way of getting up the hills. And that's also can be an effective way for you. As you develop the fitness, you'll run more and walk less. Having a bit of up and down, like I talked about doing hill reps sometimes, but also you need to do, sorry, I didn't mean to make a pun there, up and down, but having a few hill reps they're hard, high intensity training. But if you do high intensity training, then you need to recover from that. If you do long training, if you do long hilly runs, you have to recover from that as well. So you need to mix in some easy running and some resting. So what I've found is maybe 1 or 2 hard sessions per week, which is high intensity runs, like might be hill repeats or some faster, some tempo intervals on a flatter surface, and 1 long run a week is plenty. And then you just fill in the rest with slower running, easy running in your training zones 1 and 2 to just build up your, it's just developing your fitness. So don't do too much, and be focused and know what you're trying to do in each training session. So if you're trying to get better at hills with hill repeats and build up your cardiovascular system, your anaerobic threshold, the speed that you can run your anaerobic threshold, or even your anaerobic capacity, then know that that's what you're aiming to do and run at an appropriate intensity. If you're trying to build up your endurance, then run at that endurance pace in your long runs. And if you come to hills there, you might have to go a little bit slower, or you might have to walk. Just do what's appropriate and make sure you get plenty of recovery. Okay, I hope you've enjoyed this, and I'll see you next time. Bye.